I haven't done too many streams in a while. I've been kind of crazy busy. So there's a bunch that I've been meaning to get back on. A lot of stuff with to do with that AP mastering. You know, he really upset the apple cart, and there's a lot of people putting out videos are all plugins a scam, or all compressors plugins a scam, or all EQ plugins a scam, yada yada yada. And I think they're excellent. I've been talking to AP Mastering about some stuff. He had Ethan Weiner on recently, which is, you know, he's been on this show before, and I've been on shows with Ethan. Ethan is a myth buster of the highest caliber, kind of the James Randi of audio to me. And in that vein, watching Highline Guitars, does the shape of a guitar body affect tone? And I've had a couple problems with this guy's videos, but I also am subscribed and learned a lot about the mechanical parts of making guitars and repairing guitars. And I think it's a good channel. I just again, if you're going to make a claim, you got to bring the evidence. And I think he's done some stuff where it seems like he believes in magical tone wood. And like, you know, like I say, if you're going to make that claim, you got to bring the evidence, and none was presented. So in terms of the question of this video, does the shape of a guitar body affect tone? For an electric guitar, you want to, spoiler alert, no. And if you have an issue with that, present some evidence. These are the claims that are always made, these magical claims that fly in the face of what we understand about math, physics, electronics. There's never any evidence. If there's ever any evidence, it's evidence going the other way. Like, you guys don't know how many times people have tested like mic preamps, and they say that they're so different than each other at, you know, even though they measure exactly the same. And then, you know, guys like me who actually do the test show the graphs and everything. We show that there is no difference. And but the people who claim that there's this huge difference and you got to be a noob not to hear it, they never show any evidence. So let me get to go into this video. So I'm trying to bring up a piece of software that's going to matter in a little bit, but for now, I'm going to set this 1.25 speed because you know, it's a 15-minute video, and you guys already know the spoiler. So
hey guys, it's Chris from Highline Guitars. You're watching another one of my YouTube guitar building videos.
let me know if it's too quiet.
Welcome. I hope that by the end of this video, I'll have earned the honor and privilege of your subscription. The other day, a viewer commented on one of my videos, and I thought what he had to say was kind of interesting. And what he wrote was, how do the likes of Gibson, Fender, and PRS decide on their body shapes to get the best tone? Makes me wonder that if the body material was so crucial, that all would have the same shape and dimensions, albeit different wood species. Now this kind of plays into...
Now look, okay, again, I know this is going to be been there, done that for most of you, but let me show you real quick. Look at dendrochronology. Look at some images. So here's a picture of tree rings on a piece of tree. You can see there's light pieces, dark pieces. There's going to be different densities. There's going to be different holes and knots and things. So when you see somebody tell you about a species of wood sounding a certain way, they're full of it. There's just no other way. We're going to say, oh, maple is brighter than this, than mahogany. And then you're going to get other people that say mahogany is brighter than maple. Even if this mattered to an electric guitar pickup, which it doesn't. Sorry, it doesn't. But even if it did, you couldn't do it by species, because in this one, not just one species of tree, in this one single tree right here, you have different densities. So, you know, there goes that species thing. All right, so let me go on.
To the whole tone wood debate, although it's not really directly related, it's sort of a ricochet. So, and I've been talking about that quite a bit.
And I remember when I was learning how to play guitar, the Jackson Kelly had come out, and I thought that was the coolest shape in the world. And they said that it was one of these guitar magazines, Guitar Player, or Guitar World, or Guitar School, or something like that. Guitar for the Practicing Musicians, one of them. They're talking about how they made their own shapes of guitars, and some of them sounded horrible. So you have to really be careful of how you make a shape of guitar. And then, of course, Jim Lill came by and showed you how you had a bench, two different benches, the strings going across it, and it sounded the same as any other guitar. So obviously, the shape doesn't matter. But let's see what he has to say.
Bit in recent videos. So I thought that this would be an interesting topic to comment on, because what I think it does is it illustrates the difference between a solid body electric guitar and an acoustic guitar. With a solid body electric guitar, the shape and the dimensions, I'm not going to say that they don't affect tone, because the minute that I say that, somebody at some point in the future is going to do a scientific study that they'll publish, and it'll be peer-reviewed, that will demonstrate that it does in fact affect tone.
Well, I would love it if somebody did that, but nobody's gonna, right? Nobody's gonna do that paper, because every time we actually do these tests, they find out that no, there is no magic there. Magic, you know, like they always say, whenever we discover how a phenomenon works, like why does the moon orbit the Earth, or you know, why do rocks fall down instead of up? When we do discover the cause of that thing, that cause is never magic. It's always goes along with the laws of physics that we already know, you know. So go ahead, please do that paper. And you know what? If it turns out that we're wrong, good. Then at least we won't have to be wrong anymore. But nobody's doing this paper.
I will say, however, based on my personal observations and experience, my hypothesis is that it does affect tone, but it's very inconsequential, very small, very minor. But more importantly, it doesn't matter. Now, I keep saying this. I've made all these videos in recent months where I've talked about tone wood and what affects the tone of a solid body electric guitar. And in many cases, I have said over and over that oftentimes it doesn't matter. And I keep pounding that home, because when I make these videos, people will still comment and they'll try to prove me wrong that wood does affect tone, and they'll lay out all the reasons why they think it does. But in the end, they still miss the point that it doesn't matter. And I'm going to try to explain that a little bit more in this video.
So hopefully, before we go on for 15 minutes, what he's saying by it doesn't matter is that even if it did affect the tone, which it doesn't, it's at such a small magnitude that you're never going to hear it anyway. So, which again, that means it doesn't matter. Like, let's say you have two files that only null to minus 138 dB. Does it matter? Do you have a room that you could hear down to that? You know, or headphones that could even hear down to that? I don't think so. So, just because something's first of all, something needs to be measurable. Like a lot of these claims that people make, you can measure it and there isn't an actual difference. But second of all, if the difference is measurable, it still has to cross the threshold of audibility. And, you know, there is the stacking thing, but in general, if a difference is 144 dB down and you're not going to compress it to 4 bits, it just doesn't matter. So I may be getting a phone call and I may have to split real quick, but let's go on a little bit here.
By answering the comment that was left by my viewer. In an acoustic guitar, you can very precisely control the tone of the instrument as you're building it. A skilled and talented luthier will know how to manipulate the wood so as to achieve, in the end, a desired tonal response. And they do this with tap toning. And what they'll do is they'll tap the wood and they'll listen to what that tone is. And very often they'll measure it to see what note that tone is when they tap it. If it isn't exactly what they want, they can manipulate the wood. They can shave the braces, they can thin and sand the wood in order to bring it in to that resonance response, that frequency.
Now, look, I'm not an expert on acoustic guitars, so I don't know how true this is. I have some doubts, but I know that, you know, I do hear acoustics that I like the sound of and ones that I don't so much like the sound of.
Frequency response that they desire for their guitars. And this is important if you're making a lot of guitars with the same model and you want to build guitars that have what you would consider to be your signature tone. So you would start out with the uncut back and top, and you would hold it up and you would tap it and you would measure that response. Then you would cut out the shape of the guitar, you would glue on the braces, then you would tap it again. And you would continue to measure that as you carve and sand the braces. And ultimately, you would eventually be able to dial in the tone that you're after for that instrument. That doesn't happen with solid body electric guitars. I've never seen a luthier or even a big guitar company ever manipulate the shape of the guitar in order to achieve a desired tone. Never. When it comes to the wood affecting the tone, when you have just a raw blank that you've prepared, you have no idea what that guitar is going to sound like in terms of its tone, its frequency response, until after.
Yeah, you do. Because you know what pickups are going in there and where you're putting them along the string. That's exactly what it's going to sound like. Look, I know I'm going to get the pies for this, but if you know your scale length and you know what pickup you're using and you know where on the string you're putting that pickup, you know what the guitar sounds like. I don't care what kind of wood you use. I don't care what shape you make the guitar out of. I don't care if you even have wood at all. As long as you know what pickup you got, you know what scale length, and you know where along the string is, you know what that guitar is going to sound like. Sorry.
After the guitar is completely finished, you've done all the cutting, carving, routing, sanding, you've installed the pickups, the bridge, the neck, the frets, the tuners, you've strung it up, you've tuned it, and you've intonated it. It's at that point that you will know exactly what the guitar is going to sound like. But prior to that, you have no idea. By the time the guitar is finished, it's too late to do anything. You can't change the wood species. You can't
change the pickup.
Change how it was carved and shaped.
None of that matters. None of that matters to an electric guitar. It's the pickup. And then, you know, to some extent, the RC circuit of the resistor and your tone, or your tone and volume pots and your capacitor. Or knuckleheads like me that don't even use any of that stuff. You know, I got a bypass switch for the volume and no tone knob. So
dial in a specific tone. If you want to do that, if you want to dial in a specific tone, the only thing you can do is change your pickups and your electronics.
Yep.
Or the entire system.
And that's the only thing that matters anyway.
Signal chain from the jack to the speaker in your amplifier.
Yeah, there you go. That's where you do the real power, right? It's all your helix or your axe effects or your Dumble or whatever.
There's nothing you can do as far as the wood is concerned. It's a done deal. So the argument that the wood or the shape or the dimensions, the thickness, or whether it's solid or semi-hollow or full hollow body, none of that matters because you can't change it at any point while you're building the guitar. Now, I suppose technically you could. I mean, at the very beginning, you could pick up that big chunk of body blank and tap it. And
won't tell you anything. I know Paul Reed Smith does this, but sorry, Paul Reed Smith. It looks like a dowser. I mean, it really does, like some dowser. You know, got a dowsing rod out for gold or whatever, tapping this thing like just channeling some spirits coming out. Good luck. It's not an acoustic guitar. It's this wooden xylophone thing he does.
What that note is. And then after you've carved it out and routed the pockets, you could tap it again to see what the tone is because it will change. And then you can start to sand and carve it in order to manipulate and tap. If they did, think about it. Every Les Paul would look different. Every Stratocaster would look different. Every Telecaster would look different because every blank would have a different frequency response. And as they cut, carve, and route and shape the wood, in order to dial in their signature response, they would have to carve every single guitar a little bit differently to do that. In the end, they're not going to look the same. They're all going to look different. Now, one thought I had was, if the guitar didn't yield the frequency response that you're shooting for, you could drill holes in the back in order to remove wood in an effort to try to achieve the response. And that might work in certain situations, but the rub is, if you go too far, you can't go back. Oh, sure, you could probably fill in some holes.
Yeah, you could dowel it.
But if the response isn't right, and you know that drilling holes or changing the shape isn't going to get you there, you can't add back to try to get to what you want. So for the solid body, or even the semi-hollow or hollow body electric guitar builder, trying to mimic the efforts of the acoustic guitar luthier is a pointless waste of time. Nobody's doing it. And instead, what you can do is focus on
Pickups, the only part that
achieving
matters.
the tone that
Let me just
some of the history of guitar building. But nowhere a small sampling of all the different books that I have on the subject of not only the history of guitars, but how guitars are made. And one thing I have found interesting is I have never been able to find a definitive description or explanation as to how companies like Gibson and Fender arrived at the shapes of the guitars that they sell. There has been some history in terms of how the guys at Gibson worked with Les Paul to dial in the specifications of the original Les Paul guitar. But really, the only thing he offered was that he wanted a maple cap on top of the mahogany body. Other than that, there doesn't seem to be a lot of information regarding discussions that the folks at Gibson had, either internally or with Les Paul, about how they arrived at that shape.
I don't want to beat this one to death, so yeah. Does the shape of wood matter to your electric guitar tone? No. Right. Spoiler. Here's something. So this is Room EQ Wizard. This is free software, and you can use it for, determining what your room is going to sound like, or measuring things. And in my case, I use it to measure different mic preamps or different devices, and it is trivially easy. Oh, what is this? Sorry, I just wanted a picture. It's trivially easy to use this to make measurements. So if things really would sound different, it's super easy just to do some tests and show the results. So I always ask, let's show the results. Nobody ever does. I offer money. They don't take me up on it. They always run away. So how would you like some forum drama? Because there's one that I want to talk about. He says there's quite a bit of forum drama right here, but the one I want to talk about is, I left it because it got a little bit too stupid. But let's see if I can find it. May have deleted the thread. If they deleted the thread, then I'll get out of here. Things. Oh yeah, I did get some more Helix preset corruption. I did make a video on that. I don't know if anybody actually watched that thing. Let me see if somebody did actually. Let me go to my channel. I was just showing a video. Some values got changed when they weren't supposed to, and it's doing something really actually crazy. So anyway, okay, let's get to some forum drama. You guys want some drama? Yay! Okay, where is it? Yeah, here we go. So I was responding to so people are asking what what plugins do you use with your guitar amp, Sims, or whatever, in recording and stuff? And they ask, typically for my guitars and bass, I'm using the effects and the plugin modelers. Do you typically record drier into the DAW specifically to use these after, or do you find the benefit experimenting with these somewhat wet already? Of course, I'll take a DI every time because I can mess with it later. But the bigger point that I think people are making a lot of times is that there's an idea out there that your amp tone that you see your Guitar Hero guy playing with is the sound you hear on a record. And it's so wrong in so many ways. First of all, you may not even be using that gear. But even if you were, you're manipulating the sound so much that it's really doesn't have all that much to do with what the original sound was. There really is this idea that Eric Clapton or Eddie Van Halen or whatever, you put the amp out in a room, he stands out in the room with that amp and that guitar, and then magically whatever comes through that mic is right exactly how you hear it on the album. But no, first of all, he's probably sitting in one place, and Vintage's Chunk Chamber, all those famous guitar sounds we had, some of the Megadeth albums and stuff. That thing was like 50 feet down the hall from anybody, the cabinet. You weren't standing in the room with that thing. You're sitting in the control room with like a couple bajillion miles of cable. That's the other thing people, oh no, it's got to be a 4-foot George L cable or something. No, man, these guys are running like a quarter mile of signal chain cable to these things. And yeah, stuff is crazy. In fact, even the speaker cable, usually we'd have the head with us in the control room. And so there's like 50 or 80 feet of speaker cable running out there. I mean, it's crazy. Okay, so what I wrote was, I think this is a huge point, which seems to be in a lot of guitar type forums, but never on recording forums, because recording guys know better. There is an idea out there amongst many guitarists that the sound they hear on their favorite artists, on a record, is the chain they see the artist using live. That's almost never even partially the case, though often it can be one of the guitars you usually see them with, maybe an amp head they often use. So even if it was exactly the chain you see them carry around live or in magazine pics, even then it would only be the tiny part of the picture. Move a mic 2 degrees or half an inch and you are way past the difference between any two amps. Look, I don't know how many other videos have proved this, but you can do it yourself. Go take your 57, put it in front of a guitar cabinet, play a looper, so you're getting the same sound over and over, and then have somebody just go and turn the mic the slightest bit, like a degree. I'm not talking anything major. I mean a degree. Move it half an inch, move it a quarter inch, any direction, up, down, side to side, in and out, whatever. And you're going to hear a drastic difference in the sound between those two different positions. It's mind-blowing how different just moving a mic is going to be. So all this stuff goes out the window right there. But let me go on. What gets done in terms of filtering, for instance, to record a guitar tone would make most tone purists cry. And so there's another one. So if you're looking at what an EQ looks like in a recording chain, let me use ours because I can go a little bit steeper. Here. Actually, we got to do something to fix this. Actually, I got to talk to Mike. We're going to have Dave do something. So your guitar chain is going to look something like this. Probably going to have a 12 dB an octave high pass filter. Someplace pretty high, man. You might be like 150, 120. And likely you are going to have a low pass filter as well. Someplace after like 6 or 8K, it's like the fizz. So you already have a very different signal. And then what about how to fit it in the mix? You're stomping on the vocals. Yep. It's muddying up with the bass, or it's just adding mud in general, like 315, right? And you're going to duck that like crazy. So your guitar curve is already completely mangled compared to what that original tone was. Keep going. Yet they cite those exact tones on record as their favorite. So yeah, they cite the tones that are completely manipulated from anything you would actually get live in that room. Sometimes there's a part where a solo plays or light instrumentation here and there. The nearly full range of the mic cab can be heard, but once everything is on, there is some serious high and low pass filtering going on through psychoacoustics. Your brain still hears the full signal as you were primed with it earlier in the song. Check out Megadeth's song Almost Honest. I'm not going to play that. I don't want to get Pelosi'd, but check it out for yourself. It's a good example. So what might happen is, let's say you just have some crazy filtering going on to make the guitar fit in the mix. But during the part where you just hear the guitar by itself, bam, they automate the EQ into bypass mode. And then right when the mix comes back in, turn the EQ back on. So you'll often hear, they call priming. If you watch one of Ethan Weiner's videos about damn lies and statistics or something like that, they show how priming works. So if you're told to hear something, or if you hear something at the beginning, you'll still think it sounds like that later on, even if the sound has changed quite a bit. Or in the case of like the Led Zeppelin backwards messages thing, the stuff didn't exist in the first place, but once you're primed to hear it, you hear it. Let's see what else we got. So I said, and even then, the amount of post-processing that gets done to that guitar sound renders it so drastically altered from anything you could get in the real world. Okay, so here we go. Any modern record made after like Nirvana's Nevermind, which was to me the opening salvo in the Volume Wars, your dynamic range is squished so much. I mean, electric guitar's got a giant dynamic swing, even like a really distorted one. You'll notice like the bottom end doing chugs will jump. Now you got to squish everything into, what is it, -8 LUFS? I mean, you're talking about like a 12 decibel, if that, dynamic range now. That's 2 bits. 2 bits. You are not squishing your electric guitar sound in the real world down to 12 decibels or even 24 decibels. So, they like to say like every bit is worth like 6 decibels. So is it 6, 12, 18, 24? Yeah. So 4 bits. So basically like 4 bits is more. Let's just do this real quick. And I know you guys never believe this. Nobody believes this. Let me find something that I'm not going to get DMCA struck for. Hold on. Give me a second. I think I can open this. This will work. Make a quick rough mix here. I know this is some nerdy stuff here. Okay. Let me get kind of a smooth. Just going to do 4 measures. Let's try that. Okay, so right now this is at 64-bit float. I'm putting in a plug-in that does 32 bits. Okay, and I'm just going to start reducing the bits. Here's the CD standard, 16 bits. You hear it any different? Here's with it. No difference, right? I could create some pathological files where you would hear a difference between the 32-bit float and the 16-bit fixed. But in reality, when it's playing this loud, you're not going to hear a difference. So this is 16 bits, okay? This is the CD standard. This is less than what we do today, but this is what CDs were. 16 bits. So 16 times 6, that's 96, right? It's 96 decibels of, let me make sure I'm doing this right. Sorry. Let me go to the calculator here. 6 times 16 equals 96 decibels, okay? That's your natural sound, okay? Now, let's see how much different we got here. We go to 15. Okay. Same. Let's go to 14. How do I do this? Here's 14. Still sounds the same, right? 13. 12. Oh, no, sorry. 12. 11. Right? So for the tone purist, we've already ditched from 24 bits or whatever, even the 16 down to 10. We've lost 6 bits, okay? We've lost major information, more than you would sort of get from going to MP3, but that's a different thing because that's perceptual coding. It's a little bit different. But we've dropped 6 decibels right now. We've dropped 36 decibels of dynamic range, and it still sounds exactly the same. Okay, now let's start going crazy here. 9 bits. Still the same, right? 8 bits. 8 bits. 8 bits, okay? Let me talk about what 8 bits is. 8 bits is those old computer games you used to hear where they had the really weird square wavy kind of sounds. That was 8-bit audio. And yet, it's fine for today's modern levels. Right? Now, this is pretty much a raw mix right here. I don't think I have any compression on the master bus. There's some guitar amp sims going on. This Tonex actually right there. Let's see. There is a compressor on the vocal, on one of the vocals. But we're at 8 bits and it still sounds fine. Keep going. Seven bits. Okay. Now I think you're hearing something between 7. You might hear this on 8. Let me go back and forth, on and on. So if you're not hearing it, there's a little bit of a fizz and a hiss that's starting to come up. And as I go down in the bits, you're going to hear this more. Hear that? Yeah, I'm going to go down to 4 bits. 5. Okay, now you're hearing it, right? Now it's nasty. Turn dither on. Dither's on. Noise shaping. Okay. Let's go to 3. Okay, where we are now. Okay, there seems to be some sort of live noise coming out too. So when they say you're mastering at -8 LUFS, you might be in the range of what 2 bits is. Now, let me show you something else here. I'm not sure why I'm getting this hiss. Hold on, let me see what's going on here. I have a feeling it is these guitar tracks. Let's see. Who is... Oh, that's just the dither noise. Sorry. Okay. Let's do this without dither. See how that's distorting? Five is not bad, right? So let me show you something. So I'm gonna put a compressor here. We'll just slam the crap out of this thing. Okay. Put this here. And we are gonna smash this thing. I'm gonna put a limiter on here too. I'm gonna get this up to the level of a modern master. So let's go up here. Let's look at the Highline loudness meter. I'm gonna get this to -8. Now that I'm squishing the crap out of it, let's see where this bit rate matters now. Okay, so I'm going to go back up to 8 bits, which we know is going to be fine. Or I'll go to 10. So. 7. Where'd that hiss go? 6. Where'd that hiss go? Starting to hear it on 5 bits now. So it still sounds like a modern master, right? 4 bits now? Okay, 3 we're starting to hear some hiss. Let me show you what 3 bits sounded like without this compression. Okay, that's where we are. We're squashing albums so much that we can fit it into 4 bits. That's where it is. It's like 4 bits if you're lucky, right? So you can tell me you're going to take this giant swing of electric guitar. I would say at least 80 decibels of swing. And, you know, most of that probably doesn't matter. Like you could say you could get it down to 60 or so. But you're going to put that into 4 bits. You're going to put that into 24 decibels. And you're not changing the guitar sound. So I say even at the mastering stage, more EQ and dynamics is being added to everything, guitars included, before you get to that sound that people are talking about. Remember, it's not just guitar on that album. You got all these other instruments that you got to mix in there. On the individual guitar tracks, there's often, usually almost always, some pretty serious dynamics going on. Try to play any of that modern chugga-chugga stuff and notice how different it sounds than what the magazines claim was the chain. Often a big part of the missing element here is the Andy Sneap trick, you know, where you got a multi-band compressor clamping down on the low end leaving the other stuff alone. It says, where a multiband compressor or dynamic EQ is drastically clamping down on the low-end mud bloom that comes from palm muting very loose strings. And people objected to this. And let me see why. Oh, so somebody put up the individual tracks from Enter Sandman and the Metallica one. And yeah, you can hear the actual filtered tracks, and they sound nothing like what people hear in their head of what that guitar tone is. It's the whole combination of the mix. Mirror profiles, and you know, he's right in some cases, but not on modern metal music or any of this like really heavy stuff. He says, often it's pretty minimal, if anything at all. More often than not, it's just very well captured at the source and sweetened a little along the way. I guess you could see subjectively, what do you mean sweetened a little along the way? Because I mean, you're sweetening a lot along the way. You're filtering the crap out of it. Stuff that's processed heavy at any stage tends to end up weird. No, man. Go read. Okay. Just type in Slipperman distorted guitars. Read about that. Like, they'll tell you just how crazy you go with the EQs and the compressors on those things. See, so I said, I've done albums with everyone from Rick Rubin to Max Norman, and I've never seen this once. You know, I'm sorry, I haven't. Never anything close to this on a country album. Some folk stuff had less invasive stuff done, but anything even pop folk, forget it. The dynamics on those wouldn't even be possible to create real time without piles of latency. There's so much look ahead compression and limiting going on these tracks. You really couldn't do it in a real world because you have to make up, you can't travel through time. You have to, in order to look ahead, you have to delay the signal, right? And I said, and if you're talking about anything made after around 2003, you mean albums with about 6 bits of dynamic range. That resembles nothing even close to what a raw guitar could ever sound like. Most of these albums even feature dynamic inversion on the guitars. You can't make a guitar 6 decibels dynamic range in the real world. He's saying this is an utterly absurd thing to say. And then he says, when I said Rick Rubin. So instead of listening to the actual point, he goes, oh, Rick Rubin. Oh, famously, the guy who doesn't engineer anything brags about having no technical knowledge or knowing how to use a console and basically shows up to studio once in every blue moon just to listen. That's not what Rick Rubin does, first of all. But it wouldn't matter. That's just one guy's name. But this is every album. He says, sorry, but if you think the vast majority of guitar tones are the result of heavy processing and not great playing, solid gear choices and great engineering, then I don't know what to say. They are the result of heavy processing, but they are also the result of great playing, solid gear choices, and great engineering. The processing eases things along the way. Sometimes it might get someone out of a pickle. If the source isn't good, they probably didn't even hit record before swapping gear out. Most of that's just a straw man, so I'm not going to bother. So I said, name me an album where people talk about the guitars made since 2005 that has more than 6-bit dynamic range. Now that's going to get ignored, I'm sure. But, and I also say the source sounding good has nothing to do with anything of what I said. Whatever the source sounds like, just the process of mastering changes the dynamics so utterly, fundamentally, as to not even be a caricature of what could possibly exist in the real world according to the laws of physics on anything post-volume wars. Never mind all the individual processing on the guitar tracks themselves. Go ahead, leave the low-pass filter out of a guitar track, and let's see where your kick drums and bass are. If you've got a good chugga, 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 and don't high-pass it, you're not getting those kick drums. You're not getting any of the bass guitar. So Sasha Frank, who usually is very... He considers things, so I like to answer him. He says, many famous records couldn't even make use of all that processing simply because the equipment didn't exist or you couldn't really integrate it. It's not really true, but I just gave it to him. Before the 1970s, sure. Not today. Says, if you look at some consoles and outboard gear rigs, it's clear that you simply couldn't put a dedicated compressor onto each recorded track. Sure, before the 70s. But I just say, look, all that goes out the window during the mastering process. Let's say all that's true. You didn't do nothing on the mixing console. You didn't put a single compressor on, and now you're mastering it to minus 12 or minus 8 LUFS. You're squishing the crap out of everything. That's not anything that could exist in the real world. Before, you had to get things right at the source level. And I said, getting the source right and getting the finished sound at the source are two totally different things and don't normally exist in the same universe unless you're talking about the 1950s. And even then, that's not really that true. So he's talking about some of the Moogs that are out there. And of course, you Reaper users are very intimately connected with those if you're around from the early days. And so I said, most of those Moogs already have piles of processing done to them. They aren't raw multi-track dumps usually, and you can tell by what are often on the same tracks. They are incredible to listen to, but for instance, the Boston and Queen ones contain parts of the post-processing like reverb very often. Just from a pure math standpoint, you cannot get a 6-bit sound out of a guitar amp through a cabinet. They have a wild decibel swing in them under any sort of normal guitar use. That alone throws it's all what the guitar sounded like in the room right out the window. So I again, like I said, name me an album where people talk about the guitars made since 2005 that has more than 6-bit dynamic range. He says, not sure what your point is here. My point is they don't exist. There's plenty of dynamic and undynamic guitar on loads of albums. Name me one that's got more than a 6 decibel dynamic range. Tell me. Name one. It says, I've sat in a room with some of the planet's top mixing engineers, as well as had tons of my own work mastered by the biggest names as Sterling. You getting more than 6 bits back from Sterling? Right? Metropolis, etc. It's very rare that the master comes back that different than what I'm sending them as a reference. Yeah, because you're sending them a pretty squashed album already. You're just wrong. So let's see. I don't know if I even bother. So this is just plain physics denial. Volume Wars masters have no relationship to the real world's dynamic range. To claim you can get a real world guitar signal into that range without significant processing is just plain fingers in the ears. 1 second.